I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD tonight. So I'm coming to you from Austin, Texas, where I now reside. I think many of you are familiar with that idea. And so this is one of our webinars. So the way that these webinars work, you create them with your questions. And every week is a little bit different. And the reason that they're different is that your questions are always different. So sometimes in these webinars, we get into a theme and sometimes we're not. So we'll see what happens tonight. I see a lot of familiar faces on the name board of people that are showing up tonight. So for those of you that are here again, welcome back. I hope that we can find some solutions and some answers for your questions. And then for those of you that are new, I'm glad to see you here. There's always something to be learned. Even if you don't ask a question, there's something that you'll be able to figure out probably from some of the responses that I give to. I am creating a recording of tonight's webinar. Tomorrow morning, you will get an email from me somewhere probably by around 8:30 to 9 o'clock-ish Central Standard Time here in Austin. And that will have information about how you can watch that recording. During the webinar tonight, I will post the question. So those of you that are participating in the live version will actually be able to read the question down at the bottom of your screen. That question often does not show up in the recorded version. And because of that, I will read the question so that in the recorded version, people can hear what the actual question is as well too. All right. So tonight is the fourth webinar that I'm doing in January. I was off last week and I will be off again next week, but and for February, I do anticipate there'll be 3 webinars that I will get scheduled. So take a look at that. I'll have that information, that sign up information in tomorrow's email for you as well too. All right. So with no further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. We'll take our first question. So this is a question from Ginger. Hi, Dr. Marty. My daughter London has been treated for Lyme and Bartonella, sometimes Babesia, for the past year and has been seeing some good improvement while taking Zithromax, artemisinin, nystatin, Japanese knotweed, andrographis, hutania, cat's claw, Sidacuda, Bacal skullcap, and grapefruit seed extract. Do you know what might cause a sudden onset of extreme fatigue, chest and arm tightness, pounding heart, numb tingling extremities, and deep bone pain? Could be related to starting lion's mane this week. She took a capsule on Monday, 4 on Tuesday, 3 on Wednesday. All right. So Ginger, it would be hard for me to say specifically what those symptoms came from. I would need to ask a lot of questions. And what I would say is I would not expect that kind of reaction from lion's mane. Lion's mane, everyone, is a mushroom. Generally, mushrooms stimulate the immune system to work more effectively, but it's kind of a slow-moving stimulus. It's not a rapid stimulus. So it's not going to suddenly like charge up the immune system to get in there and start killing the germs. So I would be doubtful if this was a Herxheimer reaction, for instance, okay? What I will tell you is that you may want to experiment stopping the lion's mane and see what happens over the course of the week. So it is very possible that this could be some kind of a side effect reaction. There's a rule in medicine that I have from when I was treating people, and that is anything can happen to anyone with anything. Okay. And so what that means is there are common side effects that we see with medicines or herbs, but then there's also things that just happen. And the only way to know if they really did come from the latest thing that you took is to stop it for about 7 days and then add it back in again and see, do you get that same reaction? If a person does, then it often means it probably was a side effect of that thing that they were taking, okay? So I can't say for sure why this has happened. Again, I cannot tell from this information here. But one thing that I would say in medicine that I know is that when things go haywire, always look at the last thing you added. And there is always a possibility that that last thing you added may either be causing it directly or indirectly as a side effect, okay? And then the other observation that I will give you is that I don't think it was a Herxheimer reaction because as many of you know, Herxheimer reaction is what happens when your immune system reacts to all the dead bug parts from killing something with either herbal or prescription antibiotics, or by aggressively turning on the immune system sometimes. But lion's mane just does not work that quickly to boost your immune system, at least in my opinion. So I'm doubtful that this was a herx from the lion's mane. To see again if it was a side effect, what I would usually have people do if I'm trying to see if something is a side effect, stop it for about 7 days and then retry it again. Okay? All right. Good luck to you. Good luck to London. Thanks for that question, Ginger. Hello, Nancy. Let's see. Recently, a lot of excitement online about Dr. Zhang's study with essential oils, especially garlic oil being more potent than antibiotics. Will eating a ton of garlic have same effect, or is garlic essential oil a different extraction? On a different note, you recommend doxy with grapefruit seed extract. That's what GSE stands for, everyone. Can tetracycline be used with grapefruit seed extract too? Okay, so let me answer the second part of that question. I'll come back to the first part. All right. So grapefruit seed extract, everyone, is an herbal medicine that has some petri dish experiments that suggest it can kill the cyst form of Lyme. Okay. In my clinical experience, I would use it that way, and I thought I was having benefit from it. What I will tell you is there's no human experiments that say that it does, okay? But many of us have used it in our clinical practices because at least based on petri dish experiments, it looks like it can help with treating cyst. And then clinically, we see that people get better on it, and we are assuming that it's treating the cyst form of Lyme because there's been no human experiments done to prove it does, okay? All right. Now, the other thing that you need to do in treating Lyme, when you're treating Lyme, we have to address two forms of the germ, and we have to address two general places where the germ lives, okay? So the germ lives inside cells and outside of cells, so intracellularly, extracellularly, okay? And the germ has a spirochete form. That's the corkscrew thing many of you have seen pictures of before. The other thing that it has is a microscopic cyst form of the germ too, okay? Now, the garlic is picking up the microscopic cyst, but you still have to take something that's going to deal with the spirochete form, okay? Things that deal with the spirochete form are the tetracyclines, any of them. So that can be doxycycline, minocycline, tetracycline. Also the macrolides, Zithromax, which are Zithromax and Biaxin, also called clarithromycin. And then there are specific things that deal with the cell wall of the spirochetes, and that would be things like cefuroxime, which is called Ceftin, or the penicillins, okay, can do that too, all right? All right, now, the medicines that treat things inside of cells that work at both inside and outside cells are the tetracyclines and the macrolides, okay? So the reason I'm going through that whole explanation is you need to pick things that are gonna treat inside, outside cells and cyst and spirochete, okay? Tetracyclines pick up inside, outside, and treat the spirochete. Macrolides pick up inside, outside the cells and treat the spirochete. Grapefruit seed extract treats the cyst form of the germ, all right? So it doesn't matter what tetracycline you use. If you pair it with grapefruit seed extract, you have a full treatment of the Lyme germ. All two forms and where it lives, inside and outside cells, okay? All right. There's more information. You can look at all of that discussion if it seems a little bit complicated. In my article called Lyme Disease Antibiotic Guide, I describe that you need to address what I just said there. Okay, but I'll show you that article here in a minute if you want to read it a little bit more. Okay, then let's talk. So then the Zhang study. So Ying Zhang is a medical doctor out of Johns Hopkins University that has been doing some really innovative work in his lab. He's been he used to be a tuberculosis researcher and has converted, I don't know if it's all of his lab, but a large part of his work he's converted into doing Lyme disease research now. And the corollary, or why he would move from tuberculosis to Lyme, is there's some similarities, okay? Tuberculosis is a difficult germ to treat, And one of the reasons that it's difficult to treat is that it has the ability to develop what are called persister forms, okay? Lyme is a hard germ to treat, and one of the reasons it's hard to treat is it has the ability to develop what are called persister cells, all right? All right, so what are persister forms and persister cells? So again, as I said, the germ lives in two states. It lives as a spirochete and lives as a cyst, okay? Now, the cyst, everyone, also some people call it an L form, some people call it a round body, but cyst, L forms, round bodies, they're all the same thing, okay? Now, there's been some experiments done out of Northeastern University in Boston that showed that around 20% of spirochetes and 20% of cyst, when they are exposed ongoing to antibiotics, will take on a persister form or a persister state, okay? So a persister is a type of a spirochete, and a persister is a type of a cyst, okay? So what happens in persister forms is that the germ, the spirochete or the cyst, after it's been exposed to antibiotics on an ongoing basis, slows its metabolism way down to the point that it just starts ignoring the antibiotics, all right? Okay? So Ying Zhang's been doing some things. He did some experiments a couple years ago on Petri dishes looking at what antibiotic combinations might work best to treat persisters. And his most recent work is looking at essential oils. And in his study, which I think was published in December, he looked at 35 different oils and essential oils, and he was able to determine that 10 of them on a Petri dish, okay, that's the key word here, is on a Petri dish, showed benefit at getting rid of persister cells, all right? And of those 10, one of those was a garlic oil, okay? So what I want to tell you is the trouble with, there are problems with Petri dish experiments. And when you look at a Petri dish experiment, it's hard to tell, does it make a difference or not? Okay, in a human, will it really make a difference? Okay, so for instance, there was about 4 or 5 years ago, Eva Choppy, who's also doing a novel bunch of research out of her lab in New Haven, Connecticut, did some experiments with stevia. I think many of you may be familiar with stevia, and which is a sweetener. It's a plant that has a lot of sweet flavors to it, a strange aftertaste too, okay? But her experiments showed a couple things. One, that Lyme could break down biofilms. And secondly, that stevia could break down biofilms, and that stevia could also deal with persister Lyme really well, okay? And hers were Petri dish experiments, okay? So a lot of us started trying stevia to see if it would make a difference. And to be honest with you, it rarely does, all right? And part of the problem is that probably in humans, enough of it's getting destroyed in the gut that it's not absorbed in any meaningful way that it really does much for biofilms or does much for persister cells, okay? And I suspect that's going to be the similar situation that many of us see if we work with essential oils and see based on the Zhang studies, okay? So the Zhang study gives you an idea that maybe this stuff will work. The next question is going to be, can you get it in a person in a way that will work, okay? The other thing that I will tell you is about 4 years ago, the IT treatment of the year, the thing that everyone was suddenly rushing to try, were essential oils. And these were doTERRA oils, the brand doTERRA. Many of you that have been through Lyme for a while remember that phase. Everyone was trying essential oils. And on the whole, people probably didn't get much improvement at all. So I say that to say with caution that it's too early to tell if any of the essential oils that Zhang found beneficial on Petri dish will actually make a difference in a human. Okay, we just have to be candid about that. It's really hard to tell. I will tell you though that garlic is something that I have used before, either the essential oils or extracts of garlic, and I have found it to make a difference. Now, I think, what was your question here? Well, eating a ton of garlic have the same effect as the essential oil? I don't know. It might. I will tell you probably if you start getting to having more than a bulb or two of garlic, or more than 2 cloves, not a bulb, but 2 cloves of garlic a day, you're going to start emanating garlic. It'll be in your sweat, and you'll be kind of a person that smells like garlic. Okay, so just keep that in mind. But I don't think we really know the best form to do the garlic oil in, whether you're going to get enough oil from just eating cloves of garlic, or would it be better to actually get concentrated oil on the surface? You'll probably get more potent form if you just get the concentrated oil. It'll probably be more potent, okay? But again, I would caution everyone that it's clearly too early to tell, will the Ying Zhang, what he saw in a Petri dish, really be beneficial in living humans? I don't really know. And I would say, look at what happened with Eva Toppi's work on stevia, which gives us an idea that sometimes these petri dish experiments don't give us beneficial information in the end. Okay. All right. Thanks for that question, Nancy. Good luck to you. Oh, let me just do a quick screen share here too. Okay, so this is at Treat Lyme. And so the one thing you might want to look at in terms of how to design a treatment, what will treat what in the Lyme germ treatment? Take a look at this infection treatment plan section here. Take a look at my article called A Lyme Disease Antibiotic Guide. And here I talk about what you need to do. You need to combine antibiotics that treat all forms. So that's the L form in the spirochete, or the spirochete in the cyst form, okay? Combined antibiotics that treat outside and inside of cells, okay? That's what I was talking about right here, all right? So these are just some principles, but take a look. I go through some other principles in terms of how do you determine what's going to kill what, all right? Okay. Oh, and in this article, then I also have a section that says, what do the tetracyclines do? What do the macrolides do? What do the azoles like Flagyl do? So I break down what different antibiotics potentially do in treating Lyme. Okay. So you can find that at my website, Treat Lyme. All right. Oops, hold on, everyone. Believe it or not, I got somebody knocking on my door. Just a second here. Sorry about that. Okay. Let's see here. Let's go on to the next question. Hello, Pat. Let's say hi, Dr. Ross. Somebody gifted me a bottle of Moringa. Is this good for someone with Lyme, Babesia, and Bartonella? I'm taking Cemento, Banderol, Hutania, Cryptolepis, Mariva, Carnitil, Magnesium, Citramate, NAC, krill oil, and probiotics. Will this interact poorly with any of these? Is there benefit to Moringa? Pat, I can only speak about my experience treating Lyme when I was treating Lyme out of Washington, up in Seattle, Washington, until about 3 months ago. And that is, I never actually put anyone on Moringa, but I had people that came in on Moringa. And generally what my observation was is it probably doesn't give any major benefit. From what I understand about its mechanisms and how it works, I do not think you'll have any, I don't think there would be any adverse interaction in mixing it with all of these. I can't say that for sure. But in my opinion, I just have not seen it to be that effective in terms of what I've seen happen with people that actually were on it. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Pat. Charlotte says, hello, Dr. Russ. Hello, Charlotte. Hello, Marie Eve. Let's see. I've been told that I have Chagas disease caused by the protus, I always match up the saying on this one, Trypanosoma cruzi. Do you know how to treat this infection? When I read on the internet, it seems there is no cure or treatment when it is chronic. Unfortunately, I'm just not familiar with that one. That is something I would even have to look up myself before I would even be able to help somebody with it. So that one I don't know. Thank you for asking that question, though. Hello, Susan. Let's see. What are the supplements that everyone with Lyme should be taking? Well, Susan, I can't tell everyone what they should be taking, okay? What I can express to you is things that I found beneficial, and I can explain why, all right? And so probably the best place for us to look would be to look at my treatment protocol. And I'm just going to walk through some points off of that. All right. So I'm going to do a screen share here. All right. So under my treatment protocol tab here, you're going to find the Ross Lyme protocol. Okay. And basically, are things that you should do at the beginning and throughout treatment. All right. So number one, if you are not getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, you should be. And sometimes for people to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep, it requires either taking prescription medicines or herbal medicines. Okay. So in terms of so the reason 7 to 9 hours of sleep is 7 to 9 hours of sleep is shown to help your immune system work better, helps people deal with pain better. And so it also is shown to lower inflammation due to inflammation cytokines in the body. And so sleep can help you feel better. All right. So if you're not getting sleep, take a look at some of these ideas here that I have for getting sleep. Okay. All right. Number two, I always recommend that people be on a healthy diet. And the one that I prefer that you try, see if it makes a difference, is to do a paleo type diet. And that paleo type diet can be found here by clicking this best brain inflammation, pain, energy, and detox diet ever. Okay. For some people, if they have a lot of food sensitivities and allergies, it might be more appropriate to try something called an elimination diet. And I have a link for that here. Okay. All right. All right. Now, another herb that I think is important that people ought to strongly consider to take when they have Lyme is to take something that will help lower inflammatory chemicals called cytokines. All right. So cytokines are made by white blood cells when they're trying to help get rid of infection in Lyme, and they're good and bad. On the good side, they cause more white blood cells to be made. They draw them to where the infection is, and they help them work better. Okay. The difficulty is in Lyme, the immune system often doesn't do a good job. And so therefore it makes too many cytokines, and too many cytokines give you what we call Lyme symptoms. So all Lyme symptoms, most of them are actually excess cytokine symptoms. So it makes you feel bad. Okay. But secondly, too many cytokines, rather than helping the immune system, can suppress the immune system. Okay. So things that I have found helpful to lower cytokines in my practice was curcumin. And usually I like using a liposomal variety of that. Liposomal means it has a good probability of being better absorbed, okay? Or if you're not going to use curcumin, use some type of a combination that has things in it that will lower cytokines. And those can be curcumin, resveratrol, black tea extract, and acetylcysteine. So for instance, Research Nutritionals makes a product that has all of those things in it. Their product is called Cytoquel, all right? But be on something. I usually suggest that people be on something that helps lower cytokine levels. Okay. The other thing I suggest. Okay, so number one, if you're not getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, take something for that. Is what I suggest to people. Okay. Number two, be on something to lower cytokines. I have found that to be helpful. The third thing to take is something that helps your body deal with stress and will help your immune system work better too. And that is the herb ashwagandha. I have found that helpful. That is something I found helpful in my practice. And so that's why it's on this. Okay. All right. In terms of other things to consider taking, I usually suggest people be on a good multivitamin. Okay. And there's a few varieties that I would use in my practice. One is a product made by Integrative Therapeutics called the Energy Infusion. There's also a powder made by Thorne. And then Research Nutritionals has a multivitamin called the Physicians Daily. Okay. And then usually I do suggest in Lyme that people take something to help their liver, or something that supports the liver's detoxification efforts. Okay. And that is called glutathione. Glutathione is the master detox chemical that is made inside of every cells. And Lyme, the body may have a hard time keeping up with making enough of that. And so glutathione, you can take it, you can replace what your body's supposed to be making. And I talk about that here as well too. Okay. And then finally, that's pretty much it. A probiotic to help deal with your, to deal with being on herbal and prescription antibiotics. Okay. So based on this, if you just read through here, the things that I kind of consider that people ought to consider taking, one is something for sleep if you're not getting 7 to 9 hours. Number two, consider taking something that's going to lower cytokines. Number three, consider taking an adaptogen like an ashwagandha to help your body deal with the stress and may help the immune system work better. Number four, be on a multivitamin. I suggest that. And then finally, the other thing that I have found helpful in my patients would be probiotics. Okay. So anyhow, I hope that gives you some ideas. Those are the things that are part of my treatment recommendations. Those are things for you to consider, but you'll have to figure out what works best for your situation too. Okay. All right. Thanks for that question, Susan. Okay, so I've got a long question from Pontus, and what I have found, if I post long questions, they eat up my screen in a way that I cannot press buttons. So I'm going to read this one, okay? So I apologize for reading it, but that's the only choice I have here. I'm afraid if I post it, I won't be able to get back to manage the rest of the comments, okay? So Pontus, hello Pontus. So Pontus says, leptospirosis and vitreous detachment. I love what you're doing. Thank you, I appreciate that. Did I do wrong 3 years ago? I was treated for leptospirosis. No IgM, IgG today. I had Borrelia on test, Bartonella and Babesia on symptoms. This summer, I was so bad and was almost sent to mental institution. I'm so scared to get back the Bartonella Babesia symptoms. I did understand that it was an infection after having leptospirosis before I did 8 weeks of doxycycline, 3 weeks of acyclovir IV high dose, and lots of symptoms went away. I doubled my CD57 cells in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, clarithromycin IV 6 weeks, clarithromycin and doxy oral for Bartonella, one of my tier 2 treatments. At this time, I was almost okay. Then I got vitreous detachment. Then I started Malarone 2 weeks ago, and today I feel worse pain in feet, heels, and extreme tiredness, joint pains, and arms. Muscle pain, all this came back, and I did get positive test today for the first time of Bartonella henselae, IgG of 1 to 512, Cantana 1 to 256, cross reaction. Was it too early to start on the Malarone for? All right. So there's just a lot of detail here. I'm gonna stop reading your whole question, Pontus. I guess what I'm gonna tell you is I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be able to help you in this kind of a format. The problem is this kind of a format, these webinars do better at asking more specific questions or short questions, but I'm not able, it would be very difficult for me to figure out what was the right order. Did you treat long enough or not? Just with you briefly writing a description like that. So it's too complex for me to be able to do here. Now, at one time I used to do online consults where I could visit with you online. But as you know, I've now have moved to Austin, Texas, and I'm not licensed in the state of Texas to practice medicine. If I were to ask you a bunch of questions and tell you what to take based on what you tell me, that's called treating a patient without a medical license, and I could be in trouble for doing that. So I don't do those consult visits anymore, unfortunately. So I can't help you with that one. Okay, sorry about that. Good luck to you. Hello, Paula. What are the first things to take? I don't want to overdo because I have a sensitive system. Paula, again, I think you're going to need to take a look at my webinar, or my treatment protocol that I just went through earlier with people and figure out which parts of that might work for you. The thing I would say that I have found with sensitive people, people that have a hard time tolerating medicines, is that it is important to probably start one thing at a time and figure out if you react to it, okay? The thing I also have found with people that are very sensitive is before starting the herbal antibiotics, I would definitely be on things to lower your cytokines, okay? The third thing that I have found in people that are very sensitive is to consider if they may have too many yeast growing in the intestines. So you may want to take a look at the articles that I have about that to figure out if you have too many yeast. If you do, you would want to go after those first. The other thing in people that are extremely sensitive is to consider if they might have something called MTHFR, which is a detoxification problem. And if you do, try to fix that. And then finally, the thing I would consider in a person that has a lot of sensitivities is there some component of mast cell activation syndrome? Mast cells are your allergy cells, if you will. They also get turned on by too much infection. And sometimes you need to do things to stabilize your mast cells so you're not as reactive, okay? So I can't tell you exactly what to take other than what I would say is add one thing at a time, whatever you decide to do, okay? And then take a look at information I have about MTHFR, detox problems, mast cell activation syndrome, and consider, is there too many yeast there? Okay, so let me show you the articles that you can look at on that to help make some decisions for yourself, okay? Let me do a quick screen share here. All right, so this is back at my Treat Lyme guide, okay? In terms of looking at yeast, take a look at the section on yeast and look at two articles. One is a silent problem. Do you have yeast? See if you might have too many yeast in your intestines. If you do that, sometimes that increases sensitivities. If you do, take a look at the ideas I have here about how to kill yeast, okay? Number two, take a look at my chapter on detoxification. And you might want to take a look at this article called MTHFR and Detoxification, a Lyme Bite, okay? All right. And then finally, in terms of mast cell activation syndrome, take a look at the section called Immune System and look at this article called Mast Cell Activation Syndrome and Lyme, all right? So when somebody has a lot of sensitivities, I look at yeast, I look at mast cell activation, and I generally will look at MTHFR problems as well too. Okay, all right, good luck to you. All right, let's see here. Hello, Pat. Let's see. What is a good test for allergies and food sensitivities, even if it is expensive? I could be wrong, but I think there was a test from a company out of Europe. Thank you for all that you do for Lyme patients. So I am not a, you're welcome, Pat. So first of all, I do not believe in doing food allergy and food sensitivity tests because I think that they're often incorrect. And I think there's better ways of determining it. And the better way to determine the things that you might be reacting to either allergically or just being simply sensitive to is to do something called an elimination diet. And essentially what you do in an elimination diet is you remove anything that that anyone might have been sensitive to over time. And you remove it for all those things for 3 weeks. So it's kind of a bare bones diet that you go on for 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, you slowly start adding one item in about every 2 or 3 days and see, do you react against it? Now, because you've been off of all these things for a while, when you're on something regularly, even if your body is either sensitive or allergic to it, the body learns not to be as sensitive, okay? It gains tolerance when you've been regularly exposed. But if you've been off of those things for about 3 weeks, a lot of that tolerance that the body has learned goes away. And so when you add an item back in that you truly are sensitive to, you're either sensitive or allergic, you will have much stronger reactions, either fatigue, hives, whatever it is that gets worse. If you have a marked reaction, often it'll be more marked after you've been off of it for 3 weeks. It'll be obvious if you're reacting to it, okay? In medicine, most of us consider that the gold standard of finding out what you're sensitive or reactive to is actually the elimination diet if you're looking for food, and not to do blood or formal allergy testing, okay? It's the gold standard is to actually do the elimination diet. All right, let me show you that real quick here. So I have one. I have the diet sheets that you would use for doing an elimination diet, an article that explains how to go ahead and do it. So let me see where I put that. I think I have it in my nutrition section. Yeah. So take a look at this article. It's called Elimination Diet to Find Food Problems. Okay. And I talk about the difference between allergies, sensitivities, and intolerances in this article as well too. And then I have a bunch of diet sheets that you can use that help you walks you through how to actually do this. All right. But that is a much better way of doing it, in my opinion, than from what I saw in my practice too, than actually doing blood testing. Okay. All right, Pat. Good luck to you. Hello, policy. I've done all protocols, hyperbaric, antibiotics, UVLs, everything. I get better for a little while, and then I crash again. I also have a poison virus. I don't know if it's active or not. I can tell you with all the other stuff, why do I keep relapsing? Paula, it's hard for me to say. Again, this would be a situation where I just need to ask you tons of questions. And as you know, I can't do that. Unfortunately, I'm no longer able to do my consult service living here in Texas. So it's difficult for me to say. Okay. Hello, Frank. Hold on here just a minute. I have a sip of water. Let's see here. Let's see, my neurologist didn't know if Bartonella could cause muscle twitching. Is there any research or clinical evidence that shows Bartonella can cause fasciculations? Thanks. So, Frank, I am not aware of any research that shows that it does cause fasciculations. We know there is some research that suggests that it can cause neurologic agitation, and that neurologic agitation can lead to those fasciculations. What I can share with you is my clinical experience, and I know the clinical experience a lot of my colleagues have too, and that is we see that as people with fasciculations, if we decide to treat for Bartonella based on either testing or other symptoms that suggest Bartonella, often those fasciculations will go away. All right, so that leads many of us to believe that fasciculations is a symptom that can occur in Bartonella. But I will tell you the type of research that your neurologist is wanting, or evidence of it in research, I'm not aware of that research existing. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Frank. Hello, Heather. Let's see. I'm at a loss on how to proceed. I have been treating Lyme for 2 years, and my improvements are minimal. I also think that I have Bartonella and I'm treating it herbally. For the Lyme, I've done antibiotics, herbs, biocide, and LSF, and all three together. I'm concerned I have mold illness or something that I just can't get past. I found a doctor to prescribe LDN, but didn't start yet. Is this a good option for me now? What side effects should I expect? I was also considering transfer factor from your store to help my immune system. All right. So, Heather, let me just walk you through a couple of things. I can't tell you exactly what to do, but let me share you some considerations that if I had somebody in simulation in my practice, the steps that I might have taken for them, okay? So if I have had somebody that had been treated for a number of years, a couple of years or more, and really wasn't getting much better, I would start looking for other things that look like Lyme because they also trigger too many cytokines to be made, okay? So remember, Lyme is a syndrome where the immune system makes too many cytokines. I explained that earlier tonight, but essentially that's what it is. It's an excess cytokine syndrome. Cytokines are good. Immune system makes them to fight infection. But in Lyme, the immune system doesn't do a good job, so it tries harder and harder and makes too many cytokines, okay? So too many cytokines make it so you can't think, give you fatigue, make you hurt all over, give you low energy. I can go down the symptom list of Lyme symptoms. Those are excess cytokine symptoms, okay? Now, what else triggers too many cytokines? What other conditions can do that? So those are some things I would start to consider in a person that's not getting better, all right? So one thing I would always consider is, would they have too many yeast? All right, and especially if you've been on a lot of herbal and prescription antibiotics, there is a chance that there are too many yeast sitting in your intestines, triggering too many cytokines to be made, okay? So I showed everyone an article earlier, my chapter on yeast, my section on yeast at my Treat Lyme information site. You ought to look at the article there about how do you diagnose yeast, see if that might apply to you. And if it does, look at how to get rid of yeast, okay? So that's one of the first things I would start with. And somebody that's not getting better, I would always consider, is there too many yeast, okay? The other thing that I have also found is that Lyme and mold toxin illness can look a lot alike too, okay? And you may have noticed that in my treatment protocol, one of the things I say, before you even make steps to treat Lyme, if there is a chance you could have mold toxin illness, look for it and deal with it, okay? So for instance, if you got sick when you were living in a house that had black mold on the wall, but then you went out and got a Lyme test and they found Lyme, I would say still look to see if there's mold toxin illness, all right? Because I have seen in a number of my patients that came in with positive Lyme tests to see me, but I took a detailed history and I found that when they got sick, they were living in an area where they were exposed to a lot of black mold or other mold. I often found if I just got rid of the mold toxins in them, that their health returned to normal. And we didn't need to necessarily do anything to treat the Lyme, that their immune system was actually dealing fine with Lyme. All right. So how do you find out if you have too many mold toxins in you? You should talk with your providers about getting a mold toxin test. There's two schools of thought on that. Okay. There's a group of doctors that were trained with a physician named Richie Shoemaker. Shoemaker basically said, and he's kind of the granddaddy of mold toxin illness. He's the guy that found a lot of these ideas. But he would say that you should do a blood test to see, do you have the genetic profile that might make you susceptible to not being able to get rid of mold toxins. All right. I used to do that. I didn't find it helpful. More recently, in the last few years, there's been some labs that have developed ways of actually testing to see, are there really too many mold toxins in you? Okay. One of those labs is a lab called Real Time Labs. There's another lab called Great Plains Labs. Those labs can actually do a urine test to see, are you peeing out more mold toxins than you should? In which case that may mean they're trapped in you, okay? All right, so what Shoemaker's work, so about mold toxin illness real quickly, Shoemaker was able to show us that 25% of people are set up in a way that their immune systems are not able to break down mold toxins when you breathe them in or drink them in from the environment around you. And they get trapped in you. And once they get trapped in you, they trigger too many cytokines. Okay, that's why I'm saying to look at that, all right? And so that would be something else to take a look at too, okay? The other thing more recently that I started looking at with my patients before I stopped practicing was to consider, could there be mast cell activation? All right, so what does that mean? So there is a type of immune cell called a mast cell. And mast cells are generally what we thought were only making histamines when they got exposed to things that you're allergic to, okay? So histamines can be itching, hives, those kinds of things, all right? What we now know, though, is that those mast cells can be turned on by infections, by mold toxins, and by things we're allergic to, all right? And mast cells don't only make histamines, they also make a lot of cytokines, all right? So if you're having ongoing allergic reactions to things in your environment, to your yeast possibly, or to food, that may be triggering your mast cells to make excess cytokines, all right? And likewise, those mast cells can be more easily turned on if you have chronic infection stimulating them as well too, okay? All right, so 3 things that I would consider, that I was considering with patients, you ought to look at too, is mast cell activation syndrome might be holding you back, a yeast might be holding you back, and then also a mold toxin illness, okay? All right. And then finally, the other thing I consider, if you look at all those and those things aren't giving you answers, then you might want to take a look at, or what I would do with my patients is to look and see, is it possible that you might have chronic active virus infections that are triggering too many cytokines to be made, okay? And more and more these days, the way I was figuring that out in my practice was to do an experimental blood test called nagalase. And nagalase is an enzyme that is made in the covering of viruses. And if you have excess amounts of nagalase in you, that means you probably have too many viruses in you, okay? And that would be a reason to go ahead and treat those, all right? So that's a lot of stuff I just described. I'm going to show you where to look at it, okay, to consider, do these things apply to you, okay? All right, so let me go here. Okay, so first of all, I have more of a comprehensive article about what to do when things aren't getting better. Let me see if I can find it. All right, so there's a chapter I have called Can't Get Better, Do This. Okay. And basically, this will lead you through some things to consider, okay? But of those, you're going to see one of the articles I have in here is this mast cell activation syndrome one that I was just telling you about. Mold toxin illness is one that I described. And there should be the yeast one here too. And then there's the article about how to kill yeast. If you click on this, you'll find the link to the article about how to diagnose yeast. Okay. All right. So chronic virus, there should be my article on viruses in here somewhere too. Yeah. Here's the article on viruses, when and how to treat chronic viruses and Lyme disease, a brief guide. Okay. All right. So those are of all the articles that I have in here from what you just described. What I've done with patients in similar situations is to focus on those four things: yeast, possible mast cell activation, possible mold toxin illness, and as a last resort, look for chronic virus infection. Okay. All right, Heather, I know that's a lot of discussion. I'm giving you a lot of homework, but read those articles and see if they apply to you. Okay. All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Brittany. Hello, Dr. Ross. Thank you for all you do. You're welcome. I have been battling Lyme for 2 years now. I have done numerous oral antibiotics as well as IV. However, lately I've been having bad leg pain every evening and morning. My legs will feel heavy, numb, and be twitching. I've never tested positive for Bartonella, but could this be Bart? I also have frontal headaches, spine pain, dizziness, and double vision. Any advice is appreciated. Brittany, this is going to be a situation where I wish I could ask you a lot of questions, which I can't. So I'm just going to give you one observation here, that when people describe leg pain in the evening and morning primarily, that makes me start thinking about something positional that might be pinching nerves, okay? And that could even explain having numbness, I think you mentioned here too. Yeah, my legs will feel heavy, numb, and be twitching, okay? That has me wondering, is there the possibility of nerves being pinched somewhere, either in your back, okay, or in the butt area, or further out? This is something you should talk with your physician about. They may even need to have a neurologist take a look at you to see. Now, yeah, it's possible it could be part of Bartonella, maybe part of Lyme, it may be part of a lot of other things. But when I've got somebody that's describing specific symptoms that have a time of day that they get worse, like more in the laying down time of the day, okay, with numbness and pain, I start wondering, could it be possible nerve pinch somewhere, okay? Or do you have a herniated disc somewhere, okay? So those are the reasons to consider talking with your physician about maybe investigating that further with the neurologist, okay? All right. Good luck to you, Brittany. Hello, Marie Eve. Hold on here just a minute. Okay. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I heard someone say he healed really quickly. I felt a difference right away with intravenous ozone and IV phosphatidylcholine treatments. He had mold intoxication and several infections. Are ozone and phosphatidylcholine net effective? All right. So this is a hot area. So it's an area where there's a lot of controversy and strongly different opinions. Okay. So I recently published an article about my take on ozone. And after I wrote that, I was contacted by the one of the biggest physicians, a proponent of doing ozone treatments, to tell me I was all wrong. We had a nice dialogue because I said, well, I think you're wrong too. So let me tell you what the issue is, okay? So ozone is an oxidizing agent, and oxidation is a way of killing germs. So our body, our white blood cells, basically when they get near an infection, a germ will literally spit hydrogen peroxide, which is an oxidizing agent, on that germ, and that oxidizing agents can kill the germ, okay? But that's in close proximity, all right? Now, one of the things that happens with our blood is full of antioxidants because those oxidizing agents like hydrogen peroxide, like ozone, can not only damage the germ cells, but they can damage our own cell membranes, all right? So blood is full of antioxidants. And the purpose of those antioxidants is to get rid of ozone and to get rid of hydrogen peroxide, all right? So there's been studies done looking at ozone. I believe it was looking at ozone or hydrogen peroxide. I have to go back and look at it again. And no, it was ozone, actually, looking at ozone. And what those studies showed is that basically ozone is deactivated too quickly to kill germs in blood. All right. So then you got to say to yourself, well, what benefit are people getting from ozone? All right. Now, what may be happening is ozone is a good way of delivering more oxygen to the tissues. And the reason that I think people feel benefit from getting ozone treatments is that their tissues, as a result of Lyme, may be starved for oxygen. There are energy factories called mitochondria and need oxygen to give energy. And that those tissues may be oxygen deficient, and that ozone is a way of delivering more oxygen to the tissues. Ozone's converted into oxygen in the tissues and in the cells, all right? So that one of the reasons people may get better is that they're actually getting better oxygen to their energy factories called mitochondria, and they work better, okay? The problem is, I don't think it's actually doing anything that's killing Lyme long-term. People may feel better, but I think Lyme could be simmering away there. The other problem is there's no studies done about the long-term effects of regularly doing ozone. Will it hurt you? Will it damage your cells? Okay, all right. So let me just show you an article where I raise a lot of these issues, and I'm blanking on the physician's name. I can actually see his face, but I actually refer to him in this article too. Bear with me here. Okay, so this is the article. It's called Ozone, Hydrogen Peroxide, Vitamin C, UV Blood Irradiation, and Lyme. Okay, and I talk about, does it work? All right, and I just lay it out even in more detail than what I was just telling you. And the physician I was referring to is Dr. Rowan. He's the fourth reference I have down here. Dr. Rowan and I had a nice dialogue, and we just agreed to disagree. It was a good discussion. But he's a big proponent behind it. So anyhow, and so that answers part of your question, okay? All right, second part of your question, phosphatidylcholine net effective. Phosphatidylcholine is a fat that could help rebuild cell membranes and perhaps help rebuild the covering of your mitochondria. Mitochondria are energy factories found in every one of our cells, all right? When you have Lyme or chronic infection, as a result of the immune system making all these oxidizing agents to kill germs, the cell membranes can get injured and the mitochondria membrane can get injured too, okay? By some estimates, there's 300 to 400 mitochondria inside a cell. What happens in a mitochondria is sugar and fat have to be carried across this double layer of fat membrane in the mitochondria. to get to the inside of the mitochondria. And inside the mitochondria, through a bunch of chemical reactions, these sugar and fat are burned and cell fuel is created. Okay? All right, that's how it happens. Now, if the membrane of the mitochondria is damaged by oxidizing agents like ozone, for instance, there may not be enough intake of sugar and fat to the inside of the mitochondria, and therefore you may not have enough energy from that. Phosphatidylcholine, in theory, is one of the things that makes up one of the fats that make up the covering of the mitochondria. And if you give it that fat, the mitochondria may start working better, basically. Okay. I just don't think it's going to give you rapid improvement, though. If your friend got better right away, I think it's because the ozone is resulting in better oxygenation of the tissues. Read my article, you'll see why I said that. Okay. I doubt if it was really coming from benefit of phosphatidylcholine. The effect of phosphatidylcholine takes too long. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Marie-Eve. Hello, Andy. Let's see. Have you had experience using clarithromycin, rifabutin, and Alinea at the same time? Any issues to watch out for? So, to answer your question, no. I have not been in a situation where I used all three at the same time. Okay. And I would be hesitant to do so. That's just me. Okay. The reason is rifabutin can inflame the liver. Okay. Alinea may have inflammatory potential on the liver as well, too. And I usually would not want to mix those two together in my practice for that reason. Now, Alinea is used for a number of reasons. Number one, Alinea can be used to treat parasite infections in the intestines. Alinea also may, because we don't have any proof of it, may kill Lyme. So some of my colleagues are using it to treat Lyme. Some of my colleagues are actually using it to treat Babesia because Alinea is an anti-parasite medicine, okay? But it's an anaerobic anti-parasite medicine, meaning it works in areas where there isn't oxygen. Where Babesia lives, which is a parasite that some of my colleagues are using it for, is in red blood cells that have a ton of oxygen. So Babesia survives in oxygen. And for me, it's doubtful that Alinea actually would work to kill them. I know some of my colleagues are using it. They're just seeing that it's listed as an anti-parasitic, but they haven't thought through the next levels of where it's supposed to work. It's supposed to work on germs that are anaerobic. That means they live without oxygen. Babesia lives with oxygen, and therefore it's unlikely that Alinea would work for it, okay? So if your doctors are using it to treat parasites in your intestines, usually 2 to 3 weeks is enough. And then I would move into the rifabutin clarithromycin with my patients, okay? I would do Alinea first, then that. If they're using it on an ongoing basis to treat your Lyme, then that is a combination, in my practice, I would not feel comfortable using, okay? And then again, as a medicine to treat Babesia, even though I listed even in my Babesia article, I'm just doubtful it's going to have great benefit because of the mechanism by which it works. Babesia is not an anaerobic germ. All right? Okay. Good luck to you, Andy. Thank you for that question. Hello, Mark. Hello, Doc Marty. Thank you for sharing with us, Bringing Hope. A mold specialist has taken my wife off all mold killers and binders. He has taken her off nystatin, antimicrobials for Lyme, and no glutathione. This is to prevent any more die-off and from detoxing too fast, which would increase her pain. He has her only on IV phosphatidylcholine. She is also dealing with a mild and over a month-long UTI. Her Lyme literate ND is suggesting low-dose antibiotic. My wife tolerated 2 rounds Cipro and a 250 milligram tablet twice a day, and for 4 days in the past after an in vitro egg retrieval. What antibiotic do you suggest will clear the UTI and not cause a herx? Again, thank you for all you do. So, Mark, I think I know who you are. I think I know who your wife is, so I'll just start by saying that. And I think I know who your mold specialist is too. And I think I agree with what he's doing, given the kind of reactions that that she's been having. Okay. And I know that as I have followed him, that he finds benefit in that phosphatidylcholine for her type of a situation. If you are looking for an antibiotic that generally is not supposed to have Lyme activity, okay, and I hope you hear all my words, generally is not supposed to kill Lyme, therefore something that is unlikely to give a Herx reaction. All right, killing Lyme gives a Herx, okay? Killing yeast and mold gives a Herx. Killing most other bacteria does not give a Herx, okay? Killing bacteria in bladder infections, if the antibiotic that you choose is only killing those bacteria in the bladder and not other germs in the body, should not give a Herx, okay? So the antibiotic that is selective just for bacteria in the bladder, and in my experience, I did not see people have negative reactions, Herxheimer reactions. In other words, I don't think it was killing Lyme, is an antibiotic called macrodantin, also known as nitrofurantoin. Macrodantin, also known as nitrofurantoin, okay? Also sometimes called macrobid. A typical dose for an adult is 100 milligrams twice a day. And smaller people, I'd probably even look at doing 50 milligrams twice a day on that, okay? Probably a 3 to 7 day period of time is going to be sufficient in most people. And so this is something I probably talk with her prescriber about. But in my experience, again, I found that this is one that I tended not to see reactions because it primarily kills just the bacteria that give bladder infections. It works in the bladder. It's not really thought to be systemic in terms of killing elsewhere in the body. And I am not aware of it having any activity against Lyme. Okay. And please tell your wife I said hello too. All right. Thanks, Mark. Good luck. Good luck to her too. Hello, Katie. Good evening, Dr. Ross. A couple of months ago in one of your webinars, you mentioned that you had a patient who tried everything without success for babesia, then did a primaquine plus Plaquenil and got well finally. How long was she on that treatment? You also had other patients successfully use that combination. How long were they on it? Thank you. So I've had, in my practice, I've had probably about 4 or 5 people that I've put on that combination. And generally had good results with it, with all of them. And I had them on it anywhere from 4 to 5 months. The reason I would do 4 to 5 months has to do with the life cycle of red blood cells and babesia. Okay, so babesia lives in your red blood cells, all right? And what we find in red blood cells, when they are made in the bone marrow, have a lifespan of about 90 days to 120 days before the body destroys them, all right? And for whatever reason, we find people do better treating through one whole lifespan of the red blood cell lifespan, meaning 4 months to even 5 months. Okay. If you're having to resort to doing the primaquine along with a Plaquenil, that means probably that you're probably still near the beginning of your treatment. In other words, even though you've tried things, that often means that they weren't successful. So I would still say about 4 to 5 months is what I had found helpful in situations similar to this. Okay. All right. The primaquine is dosed on something called a base, and it's 15 milligrams of base, I believe, 1 time a day, along with the Plaquenil dosing was 200 milligrams twice a day is what I found helpful for my patients. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Katie. Hello, Marja. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross and everyone. and was diagnosed with Lyme and Babesia in mid-June 2018. I took Gabi for 30 days. Lyme test showed about 6 or 7 panels as positive. Recently, Lyme practitioner says Babesia is down about 5 panels. With test by GP, he used Michael DNA PC, probably PCR test. Says I have no Babesia. I have some fatigue and lots of balance issues. Would appreciate your comments on this. GP wants me to see neurologist. I was taking PT about 2 months. Appreciate your comments. Thanks. So, Marja, in my opinion, there is not a test that shows if a germ is completely out of you for Bartonella, Babesia, or Lyme. All right. The DNA PCR test that you're looking at is to see, are they finding the DNA of the germ in your bloodstream? And in theory, if Babesia is there, they should see it. But I have not found it clinically to correlate with what's actually happening with my patients. And so usually my opinion was, and what I did in practice was to treat long enough to get rid of the Babesia symptoms, because testing is not fully reliable to see if your treatment's done. That's just what I found in my practice, okay? So I would go through my list of Babesia symptoms. I'll show you that here in a minute. And if you have a large number of them, that usually means you probably still have Babesia. Okay, that's what I have found in my practice. Okay, let me show that to you here in a second. All right, so look at the section I have here called How to Diagnose. All right, and you could either look at the list of symptoms about Babesia that I have here in this article called It Could Be Bartonella Babesia, the Symptoms and Signs, or you could take a look at the article I've written called How to Diagnose Babesia, okay? And again, it's based on symptoms, okay? All right. Good luck to you. Thanks for that question. Hello, NLC. Just found out my Lyme doctor here in North Carolina got her license taken away by the medical board. So now I focus on treating myself with herbs. And I don't see a question there, but yeah, I understand it. As many of you know, I've had my run-in with my medical board in Washington State, which is why I relocated down here to Texas. And the reason I relocated here is although I still have a license in Washington State, they're still working through their process. I still strongly suspect they're going to do something negative against my license. And I relocated here so that I can keep running my information site, these webinars, and my supplement store. Because of the way the law reads in Washington State, if I had lost my license, I would have lost my ability to do all those things too. And I still want to keep helping people. So I'm down here in Texas where I can still keep doing those things. Okay. I'm sorry to hear about your doctor losing their license in North Carolina. Yeah. Let's see here. Hello, Rosie. Let's see. How to increase NK cells. Range is 100 to 360. My son is 28. So, Rosie, just an observation. The way that I found to raise your natural killer cells, is a type of white blood cell that kills infections, is to treat the underlying infection that is suppressing them. Okay, that's the best that I have found to help with that. Okay, all right. Good luck, Rosie. Hello, Megan. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. First, thank you so much for doing this. You are a hero. Thank you. I appreciate that. Question number 1. What is the best biofilm disruptor for Bartonella? 2, how do you know when you've been successful in treatment of Bartonella? Do you look primarily at total symptom resolution? 3, in your 3-tiered approach to treatment of Bartonella, do you always begin every patient with antibiotics, or do you sometimes start with the herbal combination you suggested? And 4, do you often see joint pain, stiffness in Bartonella, or is this more signature of Lyme? Okay, so I'm going to work backwards because I can. All right, number 4. Let's start with number 4. Let's see. Joint pain and stiffness. So joint pains sometimes can be part of Bartonella and sometimes can be part of Lyme. It just in itself, you can't say where it's coming from. In a person, at least that's what I saw in my practice, in a person, if they have joint pain, I would also be looking to see what's going on with the other Bartonella symptoms. If joint pain got worse and the rest of the Bartonella symptoms they were having got worse, then I'd say it's probably coming from the Bartonella. Okay, so you have to kind of put it in context, basically. All right, let's see here. Number 3. So in terms of starting with herbs or prescriptions, when I was seeing patients in my practice, I always entered into a discussion because ultimately it's the patient's choice what they want to do. Okay. So for instance, with Lyme, the 2 herbs I recommend for the Lyme germ, which is cat's claw and Otoba, those 2 in combination, I found clinically work 85 to 90% of the time. In other words, I have an 85 to 90% chance of helping a person, which is the same chance of success I have found with oral prescription antibiotics. Okay. So given those choices, often people would go with the herbal because it would tend to work as well as the prescription. Okay. All right. Bartonella, on the other hand, when you look at odds of things working based on my clinical experience, what I found is that treatments that involved at least 2 prescription antibiotics would work about 80 to 85% of the time. The herbal option using Sida acuta and Hutania that I mentioned in my articles tend to work about 70 to 75% of the time. And that tends to be the best chance. Okay. So I haven't found anything herbally that works better than that. All right. So it's really a choice. I mean, some people don't want to use prescription antibiotics because of various problems with it, in which case they're going to try the Hutania and the Sida acuta. On the other hand, there are some people that would see me that want to do the strongest thing they can to get rid of something. In that case, they might do the prescription antibiotics. Okay. So it's really a personal choice. Okay. Now, again, I said it has a 70 to 75% chance of the herbal option working, all right, versus prescription 80 to 85% chance. So you've got about a 10% odds difference in those 2 ways when it comes to Bartonella. Okay. How do you know when you're done with Bartonella? Well, you have to follow symptoms. I don't think there is a good done test. And now it gets a little tricky because sometimes some of those Bartonella symptoms look a little bit like Lyme too, but you're kind of looking at overall what happens. Do the majority of the Bartonella symptoms get better in a 4 to 6 month period on an effective treatment? And if they have, that often means that the Bartonella is done. Okay. And then in terms of biofilm disruptors, it's an interesting question. I never did anything to specifically target Bartonella biofilm in my practice. Okay. I never did it. Okay. No, here's something for you to consider though. Even though there's things we can use for biofilms, like we can use enzymes like lumber kinase, or we can use a variety of enzymes like those found in a product called BioDisrupt by Research Nutritionals. Or we can use the herbs for Lyme called Otoba and cat's claw. They kill Lyme, but they also, on Petri dishes, remove 100% of the biofilm. Okay. So all of those things we know can help with biofilms. Those are things you take. But prescription antibiotics also can break down biofilm. And that sometimes gets lost in the things because even before we started having a lot of discussion in the world of Lyme about Lyme biofilms and Bartonella biofilms, I never did anything specific for those biofilms, and people still got better on antibiotics. And the reason probably is that the antibiotics are breaking the biofilms down, okay? But a biofilm, whether it's a Lyme biofilm or a Bartonella biofilm or an E. coli biofilm, they're all essentially the same. What they are is they're a sugar slime layer held together in a protein matrix made up of something called fibrin, okay? Fibrin is the blood clotting protein, and the sugar matrix is a mucopolysaccharide sugar matrix, okay? So if you're going to take things, you want to take something that's going to break those down. So the same things we use to break down Lyme biofilms will break down Bartonella biofilms in theory. And those would probably be the enzymes, either the lumbar kinase 20 milligrams twice a day, or this biodisrupt product. I would probably look at what Research Nutritionals recommends on the label for that one. Those are some things to think about, okay? All right. Now I will tell you, there's no scientific proof that any of these enzymes actually work. It's all in theory, all right? So just keep that in mind too. Okay, all right. Good luck to you, Megan. Hello, Virginia. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Marty. Do herbs cross the blood-brain barrier? The truth is, we don't know. There's been no studies done to say they do, okay? I just want to let you know, scientifically, we don't know. However, in working with the herbs that you see that I recommend in my guide, so that would be things like the Sida, and at least the herbal antibiotics. I have seen people get better neurologically, so I assume that it is crossing into the blood, into the brain. Okay, but it's a good question. We don't have solid scientific proof that they do. All right. Good luck to you, Virginia. Hello, Jen. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I have Lyme and Babesia, and I'm currently on the Rawls herbal protocol. Many of my symptoms have improved, but I have near constant neck pain and radiculitis. I broke out in a rash in the affected area in response to taking Artemisia. I have tried many adjunctive therapies such as chiropractic, acupuncture, and physical therapy without relief. I have tried CBD oil both orally and topically without benefit. Medical marijuana has also not been helpful. Is there anything else you might suggest that could be of benefit? So I can talk about, so radiculitis means basically inflammation of the nerve roots or the nerve, okay? And so that would give you nerve pain. And that could be giving you some neck pain. Okay, so what I would say is, if it is radiculitis, nerve inflammation causing your neck pain, if it is, all right, from what you've described here, then things that calm agitated nerves might be helpful. One of those is an herb called L-theanine. L-theanine is a component of green tea, and in the brain, it is converted into a chemical called GABA, all right? And our brain is full of GABA receptors. GABA receptors are also the same receptors that anti-seizure medicines bind to too, okay? And so anti-seizure medicines are things we use to control nerve pain because they bind to GABA receptors. And if you give more GABA to a GABA receptor, that's going to activate those, and that could help with nerve pain too. Interestingly enough, benzodiazepines bind to that same receptor. They're called the benzodiazepine GABA receptors, okay? And so an old treatment, not used these days because of people's fear of addiction and everything, but old treatments for nerve pain used to be to use a Valium, which is a benzodiazepine, for instance, or Ativan, which is also known as lorazepam, okay? And interestingly enough, something else that can help with nerve pain, which is what got me in trouble with my medical board in Washington State, is Ambien. Ambien binds to the benzodiazepine GABA receptor. And scientifically, if you look at how it works, it should help with nerve pain. And in fact, it does. Some people find it successful with that, but medical boards don't like that. So that's why I'm here in Texas, basically, for having done that with one of my patients. And also using alternative therapies. They weren't happy about that too. So one option is look at L-theanine because it increases GABA that binds to that benzodiazepine GABA receptor. And raising GABA will help with nerve pain, okay? And the dose that you might consider trying, or that I have found effective with people, is 100 milligram. It usually comes a 100 milligram pill. You can take anywhere from 1 3 times a day up to 3 of those 3 times a day. As you increase, you might have some sedation, some tiredness. Okay, so you have to kind of balance out the tiredness effects versus what that does, okay? If that does not work, then you might want to consider looking at other things that modulate nerve pain, okay? And I think I actually have a whole article on that. Hold on here just a minute. All right, let's look in the pain chapter. Okay, so I have this article called Lyme Disease Pain Treatment. And I talk about nerve pain in here. All right, I talk about decreasing inflammation. About sleep. I'm just trying to see if I have those medicines. Yeah. Lyrica and Cymbalta are ways of doing it. Anti-seizure medicines are prescriptions that can do that. Antidepressant medicines can manage nerve pain as well too. Okay. The other things you might want to consider, and actually it's a good point, is with nerve pain, sometimes it can be helped by using low-dose naltrexone. Low-dose naltrexone is a narcotic blocker, okay? And it has an effect if you block narcotic receptors with low-dose naltrexone, it actually can help alter nerve pain as well too. Anyhow, I would take a look at this article just to get some ideas here that are a little bit more comprehensive than what I just said. And this is something you might even want to take in and discuss with your health provider too. Okay? All right. All right. All right, Jen, good luck to you. Hello, Faye. Let's see, Dr. Ross. I have two questions for you. One for me and one for my daughter. We both were patients of yours in Seattle. My daughter is now being treated for SIBO, which you thought she might have. She has been very tired and remembered when she was on Biocidin drops, she felt better. Is it okay to take it with erythromycin? Is liposomal Biocidin drops better? The drops are from Biobotanical Research Incorporated. I'm at the end of, all right, let me talk about your daughter here first. Okay. So erythromycin is an option for treating SIBO. Interesting enough, Biocidin, the component herbs that make up Biocidin, may also be helpful in SIBO too. Because SIBO stands for small intestine bacteria overgrowth, it's too many of large intestine bacteria living in the small intestines. What I had found helpful in my practice was to use the Biocidin, either the drops or pills, not the liposomal form, not the Biocidin LSF, but Biocidin liquid drops or Biocidin pills, because they're going to have a better chance of actually staying in the intestines than the liposomal formula would, okay? And so in my practice, when I was still practicing, I would have no problem mixing together a Biocidin liquid or pills along with an erythromycin, okay? All right, those are things you might want to talk with her provider about, okay? All right, let's see. For you, let's see, I'm at the end of my chelation for lead toxicity, then to retry the protocol for treating numbness and tingling in my feet and hands. Last time I took NAC instead of glutathione. This time you said to take glutathione. Doctor here said if you take glutathione, your body stops making it itself. What do you think? Should I take N-acetylcysteine again? So the reason to replace glutathione is if you've got ongoing neurologic injury. So glutathione is the master antioxidant that is made inside of every cell. And cells use it to repair damage. And in theory, if the cell is damaged on an ongoing basis, it's going to be trying to repair itself, and it may exhaust or deplete its glutathione gas tank. Okay? So I understand what your provider is saying, but what I would suggest is that your gas tank's depleted and it needs to be filled up. The strongest way to raise glutathione in your cells is actually the liposomal glutathione. The next strongest way that I have found is to take the building blocks which is N-acetylcysteine. That's one of the building blocks that the cells use to make glutathione. In somebody that has done the NAC before and they did not get benefit, I often found it more beneficial to actually use the liposomal, because we already know in those kind of people, and you, that the NAC didn't work. So why use something that you know didn't work, okay? So you might have a stronger chance of getting benefit, you might, by using the liposomal glutathione, okay? Those are some things to consider at least. All right. All right, Faye. Good luck to you. Good luck to your daughter, too. All right. That's it for me for tonight, everyone. It's about 7:30 here in Austin, Texas. And I know I've got two Basenjis that are waiting for me somewhere behind that sofa back there. They've been stirring. Anyhow, keep your eyes out somewhere around 8:30, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning for an email that will contain information about how to sign up for the February series. Again, we'll be off next week, but when that resumes for these webinars, and also information about how to see the recording. Okay. Now, if you don't get that email, the other way that you can find the recording is either look at the homepage on Treat Lyme at the bottom, look at the homepage of my supplement store, Marty Ross MD Supplements, near the bottom. Okay. Those are places to look for it. All right. Okay. Good night, everyone.